Astronauts' long hauls in space seems to increase brain damage risk. This is what a new study finds. As a species, we've been exploring space for a very long time. Scientists are only just now beginning to understand the potential health impacts of space travel. Now, a new study highlights the major problem that might come arising from extended periods away from our Earth. And what happens to our brain? Well, it becomes damaged. Through an analysis of blood samples taken from 5 cosmonauts before and after extended stays on the International Space Station, the ISS, each spending an average of 169 days in orbit, researchers observed elevated concentrations of 3 biomarkers linked to brain damage after the return to Earth. Previous studies raised some questions about space travel and brain deterioration, including decreased cortical volume, or in other words, brain shrinkage. Of course, that's terrible. Now, this is one of the clearest signs yet that there is an issue that needs further investigation. How could they stop this from happening? Now, neuroscientist Henrik Zetterberg from the University of Gothenburg in Sweden says this is the first time that concrete proof of brain cell damage has been documented in blood tests following space flights. This must be explored further and prevented if space travel is to become more common in the future, he said. Finally, support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below. The biomarkers the study looked at were neurofilament light NFL, glial fibrillary acidic protein GFAP, total tau T-tau, and 2 amyloid beta proteins. NFL GFAP and amyloid beta protein alpha beta 40 were the biomarkers that were elevated after a prolonged stay in orbit on the ISS. While it's not clear to what extent the brains of the cosmonauts might be damaged, if they're damaged, that is, these biomarkers have been comprehensively linked across multiple studies to neurological disorders in the past. Magnetic resonance MRI scans and clinical tests of the cosmonauts' brains back up the idea that brain function could be affected by a space trip, but the research is still at an early age. More data from more people would be required, of course, to figure out what exactly and how and why time and space affects the brain negatively. Zetterberg said, if we can sort out what causes the damage, the biomarkers we've developed may help us find out how best to remedy the problem. While the peak readings varied between individuals, the broad trends of biomarker elevation were the same across all the cosmonauts. That 3 biomarkers all showed similar changes is another indication of a substantial increase in risk. This study does not go into why these changes in the brain might be happening. With just a handful of people in space at any one time, it continues to be difficult for researchers to gather a broad enough set of results to make any detailed conclusions about the health risks of space travel. But we don't necessarily have to stick to cosmonauts and astronauts for studies. Researchers are continually conducting experiments on Earth designed to replicate at least some of the more stressful conditions of space travel without us ever having to leave the surface. Well, maybe it has to do with lack of gravity up there. Now, Zetterberg says, we must help one another find out why the damage arises. Is it being weightlessness, changes in brain fluid, or stressors associated with launch and landing? Or is it caused by something else? Here, loads of exciting experimental studies on humans can be done on Earth. This was published in JAMA Neurology. It's on Science Alert by David Neild. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support.